Meeting started. I am Councilor Green, and I'm joined by Councilors Hogan, Carney, and Allen. I think that's it for right now. So we'll start with the first item, which is the city and school tax levy letter.
Thanks, Councilor. This is Brad O'Connor, Commissioner of Finance. So I've submitted the city and school tax levy and tax percentage for your approval. This is based on the audit or the budgeted numbers that you approved and the mayor ratified recently. This is standard every June before we can send out the bills to the taxpayers. Happy to answer any questions you have.
Any questions from councilors? Okay. For members that are members of the Finance Committee, are you comfortable moving this item?
Yes, I am, Counselor.
Okay. Anyone opposed? Sounds good. All right, thank you.
Counselor Green, I think Counselor Carney didn't get the items sent to him. If maybe Mr. Driscoll could send them to Joe.
Brian, if you could
Brian.
the for finance and also for DPW receive any of the agenda items today.
Okay.
I can forward those to your Syracuse first.
Okay. The next item is the budget transfer. So if I guess Budget Director Rudd would probably be the person for that.
How's it going, councilors? So the budget transfer is moving a little under $1.6 million from our health insurance line, which we're underspending in, and moving it to law. Well, $770,000 to the law department for professional services, $100,000 for code enforcement demolitions, $720,000 for judgments and claims, which brings our total for judgment and claims to a little over $1.7 million. And we're planning on paying for all the judgments and claims with cash and not bonding for them this year. And then there's $6,000 going to unallocated insurance, which is basically a line for our cyber insurance policy, which was more expensive than we had initially anticipated for the year. So all of this is kind of corroborated by the mid-year revenue and expense reports. So if you look at that, the departments that have negative values are where the money is being transferred. And then when you look at the health insurance line, you can see that there's like $7 million in expected underspending there. And I'm happy to answer any questions. Oh, on revenues in the report that goes along with these transfers, where the AIM aid was previously, it was reduced by 20% in the previous fiscal year. So the state has made us whole. So in FY21, we'll get 120% of the state AIM allocation. That won't be the case moving forward. It'll just be back to the regular level in the future. But that's the biggest revenue change, I would say, in terms of expectations.
Questions on this item?
Yeah, if I could, Counselor Green. Tim, so when will we tie a final knot on the previous budget year? It'll be at the end, obviously, the end of our fiscal year, June 30th. When do you think we'll have everything together? I mean, will we end up with like a surplus, or how's that going to work, you think?
I think we will have net positive revenue for fiscal year 21, and it'll increase the fund balance. To what extent will depend on certain uncertain charges, like the settlement with the PBA. So to the extent that hits, that would affect the final number. And I would let Brad answer, but I think it's like, Brad, how long does it take before you expect to close from the end of the fiscal year? A couple months?
Yeah, there are reconciliations that we've got to do, and the reconciliations are based on information that comes in the months after June 30th. The largest reconciliation is based on sales tax. We get our sales tax information quarterly, and the quarters, they're off quarters. They end February, May, August, and November. So the quarter that starts June 1st and ends August 31st, we don't get that information until October. That's usually the last item to reconcile for our June 30th year end. We can certainly, I understand it was a bit of a shock to receive some of the information for last fiscal year. Last fiscal year was unusual. A lot of change happened. So I can put together an estimate before we get those final numbers in October, just to give you an update on where we stand before
Well,
that.
I think especially with, we don't know when the arbitration for the police department contract will come. So do we have flexibility to manage the monies that we might need for that arbitration, Tim or Brad? Meaning if it comes before the end of this fiscal year, would we be able to pay for that out of this fiscal year, or how would you work that? What's the strategy? Or maybe this is
This year would probably be a good time for it to hit. I think most of us want it to be taken care of in fiscal year 21, and we would have the ability to pay with the fiscal year 21 dollars.
Okay. I do want to call our attention to, the law department professional services. I know, Tim, you projected that we'd be at 1.5, which is pretty close, but now it's like going to be 1.8. And these are all for, obviously, professional services by outside lawyers, correct? There's nothing else in there in that line.
I would let Kristen talk about the detail of the line, but
Councilor Hogan, I believe those are settlement amounts that we borrowed for versus cash.
No, there's two lines. The one is professional services. That's getting $1 million, so it goes up to 1.8. And then there's judgment and claims, which goes from 700,000 and is getting $1 million, and it's going up to 1.7. So they're kind of similar numbers, but the one is definitely professional services, so paying outside people, and the other is the settlements and lawsuit stuff.
Which I mentioned yesterday or the other day regarding our potential lawsuit against the Columbia Monument lawsuit. So, you're talking almost $700,000 more than was budgeted without that lawsuit and other, dealing with other lawsuits. So, well, okay. That's all I got to say on that subject right now. Thank you, Councilor Green.
Thank you, Counselor. Any questions from other counselors? For the members of the Finance Committee, are you comfortable moving this item forward?
I'll go along with anything Tim says. Yes.
Fine with it as well.
Okay, thank you. Okay, the next item relates to IT department and a intermunicipal agreement with Onondaga County for PeopleSoft. So I'll turn it over to Dave.
Hey, councilors, good afternoon. We're asking for a 1-year extension of our IMA, our intermunicipal agreement between us and Onondaga County. 2 changes this year, a slight increase. Last year, we set the limit not to exceed for the 12-month period of $65,000. We've asked for an increase of $25,000 this year. That'll make it $90,000 not to exceed for the 12-month period. And we've expanded the scope a little bit. As you know, the city's working hard, moving towards a modern timekeeping system. The vendor of choice is a software by the name of Kronos. It's the same software that the counties run for 5 or 6 years now for their timekeeping needs. in a similar model to the PeopleSoft. They're going to host it for us there, saving us tens of thousands of dollars of IT costs in terms of setting up the servers. So we're going to piggyback on them, on their installation. We thought it would be prudent to expand the IMA slightly to include any Kronos activities. The county's been a really good partner so far. Because of our needs, they've done an upgrade maybe a little bit earlier than they might have done. They haven't incurred any hard costs as a result of partnering with us, but they have saved us significant monies. In the event that we need their help above and beyond what they would do for their own computing environment, we'd like to have the flexibility to reimburse them using the same model that we do for PeopleSoft. So how it works with PeopleSoft is we need help. We need a training. We had a training class for the auditor last week or 2 weeks ago. The person that ran that training class bills us hour for hour. That was in that example, that was a county employee. We pay whatever his hourly rate is plus a fringe, and we reimburse the county hour for hour. In some cases, we use the county's consultant. In that case, we reimburse at that same rate. We would see this working the same way in terms of if we needed some help with Kronos. This extension would be in place till May of next year. So the Kronos activity is going to heat up. We don't know for sure when or to what extent we're going to need their help, but it seemed prudent to do it. The other choice is to go out and hire a consultant, which would be much more expensive, and they'd be walking into an environment that they're not familiar with. And walking into a project they'd have to come up to speed on. So this is an annual renewal for PeopleSoft with the twist that we've expanded it to include some Kronos activities, and we've expanded the not to exceed from $65,000 for the previous 12 months to $90,000 for the next 12 months. Any questions, please?
Dave, what about, so this Cronus, just, I know we've asked this question, but this will solve the issue as far as overtime, real-time overtime costs associated with the police department.
So I can't assure you it's going to solve any one particular problem. It's going to give you visibility that you just don't have now.
I have a lot of visibility, Dave.
Okay.
I'm with you.
Not as much as you think right now when it comes to overtime costs with police. This tool is going to give you the ability to scrutinize where and when they spend the money, what the program costs are, who gets called out. This is a modern timekeeping tool, something the city has not previously invested in.
Thank you.
Any other questions on the side? Okay. Are the members of the finance committee comfortable moving this one?
Yes, I am, Counselor.
Counselor Carney?
Whether
Okay. And then the last one is you as well, Dave, so you can take that one.
Yeah, this is a software license for software that's specialized for the use of creating logos and images and fancy graphics that go with a modern website presence. I can tell you behind the scenes that the long talked about new website for the city is coming. They're working feverishly on it. I've been a part of some of those meetings. There's a whole team, including some new hires working dedicated just to that task. There's going to be a soft launch in the not too distant future. And then the real unveiling will come just a little bit while after that. This is a tool they currently use, and they just want to expand the number of licenses that are available because there'll be more people involved in updating portions of the website.
Any questions on this? Are the members of the Finance Committee okay with this item?
Yes, yes, thank you, Councilor Green.
I'm all set with it as well.
Okay. And I believe that's all our items, correct?
Thanks, counselors.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, thank you very much.
Cool.
So we will close down the Finance Committee meeting. Thank you all very much for your time.